In the capital of Brasilia, hundreds of hardcore supporters of Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, stormed the country's Congress, presidential palace, and Supreme Court in a stunning security breach that was immediately compared to the January 6th invasion of our U.S. Capitol by followers of Donald Trump back in 2021. Video footage shows the pro-Bolsonaro militants sprinting up the ramp to the Senate building, the presidential offices, roaming the building's corridors, and then vandalizing the nearby Supreme Court, where hundreds of windows were smashed. The veteran progressive president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, better known as Lula, was just sworn in as Brazil's new president on Sunday, January 1st, in celebrations attended by hundreds of thousands of Brazilians. But according to Brazilian press reports, thousands of pro-Bolsonaro extremists for months now refuse to accept Lula's narrow victory in October's presidential election, spending recent weeks camping outside army bases across Brazil and calling for a military coup. The attack on Brazil's capital is eerily similar to what occurred in our nation a little more than 2 years ago and sparked nationwide protests, you may recall, on the one-year anniversary of the January 6 riots, including the demonstration in Arlington at Whittemore Park on January 6, 2022. ACMi News covered that demonstration and talked to event organizers who told us that terrorists imposing their will through cowardly attacks on federal institutions can never prevail, and that even though January 6, 2021 is history, to forever remain vigilant.
January 6th insurrection last year was not the beginning or the end of efforts to undermine democracy in the United States. It's been going on for years, and it's getting more and more severe. Right now, there are legislators in 30 states that are passing bills that make it more difficult to vote and make it easier for local officials to overturn the results of elections.
So that we can make this a mass protest around the country. We need people in the street every day, as big as Black Lives Matter. We need to be on Joe Manchin's front lawn. We need to be everywhere. And now is the time to do it. We can't wait any longer.
Yeah, really, the threats to democracy are not over. There are so many of them. So many states are doing things, enacting new laws to disenfranchise people, on the basis of race and party, and trying to control the election process, electing secretaries of state that are partisan, local election officials that are partisan. So there are so many things going on right now, so many attacks to our democracy. I think it's really essential for the people to kind of stand up and say we value our democracy, and we want to make sure that elections are held fairly and that the results are respected.
Again, that from Arlington residents on January 6, 2022 in Whittemore Park. Meantime, according to TV Globo in Rio de Janeiro, Lula, who was here in Sao Paulo on Sunday visiting flood victims, called the protesters fanatic fascists and decreed a state of federal intervention in Brasilia, an emergency measure by which the federal government temporarily can replace state authorities in charge of all the public security. And finally, former President Jair Bolsonaro, a far-right former army captain whose main international ally was Donald Trump, flew out of Brazil on the eve of Lula's inauguration and up to this week has been reported to be in the state of Florida. Late Sunday night, several U.S. lawmakers on Capitol Hill called for Bolsonaro's extradition back here to Brazil. A very fluid story, to say the least. Reporting from Sao Paulo, Brazil, for ACMi News, I'm Jeff Barnes.